So if you have, we're going to be recording. So if you have any issues, we can send the recording to you. All right. And with that, we will get started. Thank you, Megan. So our agenda for today, we're going to first talk about AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Survivor Link, give some history and general information for you all, so you have background knowledge. We'll then also go over creating some of the onboarding steps, which you should have received an email from Megan. And some of you, if not all of you, may have already completed these steps. So if they are, it'll just be a review for you. But if not, it may be helpful, me walking through it for you. We'll talk about creating a member profile and the application on the AmeriCorps website, as well as applying for the specific Survivor Link position, which none of you here will have done yet. We'll also talk about the student support stipend supplier registration. That was a mouthful. The Encore system, which is how you'll be tracking your time and your AmeriCorps service hours. We'll also review member expectations, prohibited activities, and I'll leave you with a to-do list before we go over the AmeriCorps Pledge. If anyone have questions at any point during this presentation, please definitely let me know. Otherwise, we will also have some time for questions at the end. But first, we are actually going to do a quick poll to get a feel for who we have with us today and your background. So if you wouldn't mind, either on your computer or phone, however you're joining today, going to slido.com and entering the code. And the first question is, what is your program of study? So I'd love to hear or see where everybody is studying who is joining us this summer. Let's see, so far mostly social work, got criminal and criminal justice. Other, you're welcome to share in the chat or tell me what the other is if you're interested. I'll tell you, typically we have a lot of social work students, and I would say criminology and criminal justice is second highest for our number of members. And everyone another minute or two. And psychology as well. So, all right, thank you all. Let's see, social work. And then we have one more question. How familiar are you with AmeriCorps? I always like to get a sense of how many people know about AmeriCorps. Okay, so a lot of you have heard of AmeriCorps but didn't know much about it. Never heard of AmeriCorps. Awesome. I think someone who has already served previously. We're out of a wide range today. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Appreciate the opportunity. All right, so then first I'm going to talk more generally about AmeriCorps as a whole. For those who really don't know a lot about AmeriCorps, usually the way I like to describe AmeriCorps is that it's the Peace Corps, but domestic. So you're stateside, and there are numerous programs across the country, different types of programs, from some that are like year-long terms of service, which is the VISTA program. This particular program that you're going to be participating in this summer is a state national direct service program. We have there's senior corps, you'll learn more about in a little bit when we go through an AmeriCorps history video, but a lot of different programs. And the overall arching mission for AmeriCorps is to strengthen communities and develop leaders through team-based national and community service. Some general lingo for you all to be familiar with as you complete your AmeriCorps service. We use the term member. I know you all are students or maybe graduating soon, but we use the term members, and this refers to anybody who's currently involved in their volunteer service with AmeriCorps. The term of service refers to the period of service committed by the member. So I think majority, if not all of you, are going to be doing the 300-hour term of service, and you'll have specific dates once you're enrolled, and then end of the period of term of service is typically the end of our program year, which is August 31, 2022 for this year. National Day of Service, AmeriCorps has 2 nationally sanctioned days of service on 9/11 and Martin Luther King Day. Students who participate in our AmeriCorps program only over the summer, unfortunately don't get the opportunity to participate in these specific days of service, but these are days that members who participate in service in fall and spring semesters participate in. These are days of service that across the country, all AmeriCorps members do service on these days. For our particular program, we plan these events and they're just an opportunity, a really nice opportunity for all the members to get together in person. We don't have a lot of those as much anymore since COVID, and give back to the community. And then the Education Award, this is one of the financial benefits of AmeriCorps. The Siegel Education Award is determined by CNCS and is distributed at the end of your service. So each of you at the end of your term of service this summer will receive that Siegel Education Award, which can be used for tuition or qualified student loans. All right, so next we are going to watch a brief history of national service video. It's just over 7 minutes long, and then we'll reconvene to talk a little bit more about our specific AmeriCorps program and move on to onboarding as well. So I'm just gonna make sure that you all can hear my sound, and please let me know in the chat if anyone cannot hear the video.
American philosopher William James published his idea of non-military national service in the United States in his 1910 essay entitled The Moral Equivalent of War. In his words, the only thing needed is to inflame the civic temper as past history has inflamed the military temper. In 1929, the Great Depression hit. Millions of people lost their jobs and many farmers and businesses entered bankruptcy. Many struggled and barely got by. Unemployment reached 30% and soup kitchens were ubiquitous. One of the first elected leaders to use James's concepts to create public policy was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It is believed that Roosevelt became interested in the ideas expressed in The Moral Equivalent of War as a student of William James at Harvard. As governor of New York, Roosevelt recruited more than 10,000 men from the state's unemployment rolls into reforestation projects. His service program was successful and paved the way for future government-sponsored service projects. As president, Roosevelt launched a number of new programs as part of the New Deal, including the Works Progress Administration, the Social Security Agency, and the Tennessee Valley Authority. He created the Civilian Conservation Corps, a precursor to today's NCCC, within months of his inauguration in 1933. This alphabet soup of programs had a tremendous impact and was very popular at the time. On June 22, 1944, President Roosevelt signed the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944 into law. This bill became known as the GI Bill, and it provided a range of benefits for World War II veterans, including money for tuition and expenses related to education. Following World War II, with the U.S. slipping deeper into the Cold War, President John F. Kennedy focused the nation's attention on national service and challenged Americans.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
In 1961, President Kennedy established the Peace Corps, with authorizing legislation approved by Congress on September 22, 1961. President Kennedy said, "The wisdom of this idea is that someday we'll bring it home to America." The Peace Corps opened up opportunities for young Americans to volunteer their service in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Kennedy envisioned the Peace Corps as an agency that enabled Americans to serve others in developing countries, to engage in cultural exchange, and to better themselves in the process. This was the beginning of what we now know as Stipend Volunteer Service. As part of the War on Poverty, President Lyndon B. Johnson created a number of initiatives which engaged the energies and passions of Americans to develop opportunities for self-improvement. President Johnson created VISTA, Volunteers in Service to America, National Teacher Corps, Job Corps, and University Year of Action as part of the Domestic Volunteer Act of 1964. The VISTA program provides opportunities for Americans to serve full-time to help thousands of low-income communities and is sometimes called the Domestic Peace Corps. This program is now part of AmeriCorps. In the late 1960s, the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, the Foster Grandparent Program, and the Senior Companion Program, which today comprise National Senior Service Corps, were developed to engage older Americans in the work of improving the nation. These programs foster the understanding that older adults are valuable resources to their communities. In the mid-1970s, the Youth Conservation Corps, a direct descendant of FDR's Civilian Conservation Corps, engaged 32,000 people aged 14 to 18 in summer environmental programs. Later, an even larger federal program, the Young Adult Conservation Corps, was launched, providing young people with year-round conservation-related employment and education opportunities. In 1976, California Governor Jerry Brown established the California Conservation Corps, the first non-federal youth corps at the state level. 1988 Republican presidential candidate George H.W. Bush brought focus to national service when he announced plans for his Youth Engaged in Service program. At his inauguration, President Bush invoked the vision of 1,000 points of light and challenged people to take action through service to their fellow citizens. President Bush created the Office of National Service in the White House and merged the Center for Volunteerism and the Points of Light Foundation to foster volunteering. Congress passed and President Bush signed the National and Community Service Act of 1990. The legislation authorized grants to schools to support service learning and demonstration grants for national service programs to youth corps, nonprofits, and colleges and universities. These were Serve America. During his presidential campaign, Governor Bill Clinton visited a number of college campuses and urban communities and was intrigued by the national service movement. The time was right to rekindle the idealism called forth by John F. Kennedy in the Peace Corps and by Franklin D. Roosevelt in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Clinton unveiled his plan, describing it to Americans as a domestic GI Bill that would ask young Americans to go to the streets of our cities and be teachers, to be policemen where we need community policemen, to be nurses where there is a nursing shortage, to be family service workers where families are breaking down and children are abused and neglected, to rebuild America from the people point of view. We can do this with a national service. President Clinton signed the National and Community Service Trust Act of 1993, creating AmeriCorps and the Corporation for National and Community Service. The act expanded opportunities for Americans to serve their communities and required that states form commissions to access AmeriCorps funding. The Corporation for National and Community Service is a public-private entity that grants federal funds to state commissions and directly to service and education agencies to support service-related activities. The corporation oversees AmeriCorps and the National Senior Service Corps.
All right. So next we're going to talk about our specific program, AmeriCorps Survivor Link. And our program's mission is that we aim to build networks of support by placing domestic violence advocates across the state of Arizona. For a diverse set of AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps Vista service opportunities, Survivor Link can build capacity to promote healthy relationships and reduce gender-based violence in the community. So under our umbrella, we have 3 AmeriCorps programs. This program that you all will be participating in is Arizona, the State National Grant Program. And then we have a VISTA program as well. Megan oversees that, which is full-time service. So these students are participating in service for a whole year with our office, as well as other sites. And then our brand new program, we actually just recently got awarded a public health grant, which is a new program with AmeriCorps. And this is our first national program. Previously, our other 2 programs have only been in the state of Arizona. So this is going to be our first national program with partnership with 14 different universities in 11 states, where students will be placed in different public health settings to educate on domestic violence to the staff at public health agencies. So our team, Dr. Jill Messing, some of you may know her. She is our program director, as well as the director of the Office of Gender-Based Violence. Megan and I are both program coordinators. And then we have Julie Greenberg, who works a lot on our grants, compliance, member support, pretty much a lot of different things. Just to give you a little bit of a history of our particular program, and our program's been around since 2015. We were established with a state and national grant at that point in time. In 2018 was when our VISTA grant was received, and the first cohort was launched that year. In 2018, we expanded our work to programs outside of domestic violence. So we still work with a lot of agencies that do domestic violence specific services or working with specifically domestic violence survivors, but we also now have a really much broader range of agencies that we partner with, from schools, community mental health centers, substance abuse treatment centers, offices here at ASU, and a wide variety, which is really nice with our shift and expansion of focus in this coming program year, including this summer. We'll be looking at more healthy relationships education and the ability to broaden our scope to those that we reach in the community by incorporating more of the healthy relationships education for those of you who may be at sites where you are not necessarily working with survivors on a day-to-day basis. In 2020, Planning Grant and Community Advisory Board developed our Healthy Futures program, which was approved in 2021. And again, this year, we just recently were awarded our Public Health Survivor Link grant. And also just to give you an idea of the program that you're joining, the wonderful opportunities that students have had to participate in service. Since 2015, when our program was developed and started, students and members have engaged in over 190,000 service hours, as well as different over 50 partner sites statewide, from up north down to Yuma. Students have implemented over 1,000 risk-informed evidence-based safety plans with survivors of domestic violence, participating in meaningful days of service, earned $1.2 million in scholarships and approximately $700,000 in tuition funding. And we're really proud of our retention rate for our members. They complete their service with a retention rate of 94% in our program. All right, so next we're going to go through some of the onboarding steps. Again, this may be a little repetitive if you've already gone through this, but it may be helpful for you, for those of you who have not or have any questions. One of the first things that we had included in the onboarding email was to create a member profile for AmeriCorps. So you will go to myamericorps.gov, click apply to serve, and then there will give you some prompts. You'll have to include your basic information, like your name, your email address, phone number, date of birth, things like that. And for those of you again who have not completed this step yet, this is what that looks like. When you go to myamericorps.gov, you'll have the option down here where it has the username and password to click apply to serve. And then you're going to first create a general application for AmeriCorps. So this allows you to have an AmeriCorps application that you can submit to various different programs. So even after you participate in Survivor Link, you could then later apply for a different AmeriCorps program. So this one is just, again, the general application for AmeriCorps. So I'll walk through the steps again, and then I'll show you some screenshots. So once you log in, from the left-hand title bar, you're going to click on Applicant Home and then Applications. And then you're going to choose Create Application. And again, it's going to give you some prompts. It'll have you input some information. A few sentences for each question is fine. Doesn't have to be really lengthy. You are going to use both me and Megan for your references, Megan and I. And our information is included here, as well as in the email that Megan sent. So again, once you log in with your username and password, you're going to go to Applicant Home here on the left, then select Applications in step 2. Step 3, you're going to create application, which is down here. For those of you who have participated in AmeriCorps before, or maybe applied for AmeriCorps in previous years, you may see applications listed here already. If you decide to, you can choose a pre-existing application, make any changes and edits that you would like to do, any updated information and resubmit that, or create a new application. And of course, if you've never created an application, you'll have to create a new one. And then for the references, once you put those in, really important to, there's this little checkbox on the very right-hand side of the row where you put in the information for the references. Super important to check that box, because that allows for the notification to get sent to me and Megan to complete your reference check. And you will not be able to have your application finalized without those references. So really important to make sure those are selected. And then you're going to click Finish Application here at the bottom. And then when it comes time to link your application to our specific AmeriCorps Survivor Link program and position, there are 2 ways that you can go about it. The steps that I'm going to go through here are allowing you to do it on your own, where we email you and let you know, okay, it's time to link your position or link your application, and here's the position you're going to be applying for specifically. There's another way of doing it where we actually invite you to apply for the position, which we have been trying to do that for a couple members that are onboarding right now. So we'll let you know either way, if you're going to be invited to the position or if you're going to link it this way. For those of you who may end up using this method, I'll go through the steps and show you what that looks like. So at this time, you're going to again log into myamericorps.gov, click on applicant home, and this time you're going to go to search listings, and in the program name box, you can type survivor link. And then you're going to click on the position that was given to you by our staff, whether it's me or Megan, most likely by email to let you know which is the correct position. Usually it goes by the number of hours. I don't have the titles included here because they periodically change, either from semester to semester or program year to program year. But generally, it's going to be minimum time, which is 300 hours, quarter time, which is 450 hours, and then reduced half time, which is 675 hours. The majority of our students in summer usually do 300 or 450 hours. And then if you are not graduating and you're interested in joining AmeriCorps again in the fall or spring, typically for those of you who are in field placements doing 480 hours for internship, you would likely do the 450 hour position for us, because that aligns really well with what you're already going to be doing for field. But for this purpose, you'll select the one that was given to you, or you'll receive that invitation, and then you'll click apply now. Again, there's going to be some prompts and you'll hit submit. So again, applicant home on the left. This time you're going to go to search listings, highlighted here. And then you'll be able to click in the program, right in the program name, survivor link here, and then click search. And then you'll see the positions listed. There may be more or less than what's listed here. These are old ones. But again, you'll just match what is the position that was given to you by staff or you were invited to select. It'll give you a position description, and then you'll want to hit apply now. And then this is the prompts that you have to go through with certification, basically saying that all the statements and information you include in your application are true, correct, and complete. It does have you verify that you received a high school diploma or its equivalent, which is one of the reasons we have you complete that form in the onboarding documentation that states that you have completed your high school diploma or received your high school diploma. It's also going to ask you to verify that you're over the age of 18, because our program requires 18 and above for those to serve. And then talks about education awards. Like if you've already participated in AmeriCorps service, you may not receive AmeriCorps education award or the full award, depending on how many hours of service you've previously done. And then you're going to click submit here at the bottom. All right, so this next piece is the student support stipend supplier registration, which again was in the steps, the onboarding steps that Megan sent via email. This one is very important so that you can get paid. This is how we pay that cash stipend, which is typically split up into 2 payments over the term of service. So for you all, it'll be 2 during the summer. And I think right now we're looking at having 1 in June and then the other at the beginning of August, just to give you an idea of timeline. A couple things that are important to note here. If any of you are participating in federal work study and didn't include it in your initial online form, please let us know. Unfortunately, anyone who participates in federal work study during their term of service is not eligible to receive our cash stipend because they're both government funds. Additionally, if you're in an internship that provides a stipend or some sort of payment, please be sure to let us know as well. Depending on how that's paid and the way it's worded and the funding that it comes from, we want to make sure that you're able to get the cash stipend as well for our program. So this is a Docusign, pretty easy to fill out if you haven't already. When you click on the link given to the onboarding email, it'll have you put in your name and your email address as a supplier. And there's this little checkbox here that you'll have to agree to move on to the next screen. And then it's going to have you put all your basic information, your name, your social security number, date of birth, address, phone number, etc. And it's going to have, you're going to want to select new registrant unless you've completed this documentation before, if you previously applied as a member. And then at the bottom, there's going to be a question whether or not you provide goods or services. You want to say no, you're not going to be providing any goods or services to ASU. One thing I'll note here is super important to verify and make sure, double check that your address is correct. We've had an incident last year where a member accidentally put, I can't remember if it was east instead of west or west instead of east, and the check went to the wrong address, and somehow the person at that wrong address cashed a check. It's kind of a whole big deal. So definitely make sure that your mailing address is correct. The other thing that I will note here is that if at any point during your term of service, your address changes, or let's say you completed this form with one address and then you moved prior to, or you're going to be moving soon prior to your payment, you can actually go back to that same link, and there's the option, I know it's kind of tiny on the screen, but to say I am modifying my supplier information. So you can go back in here and update your phone number, update your address, update your name if you change it, any of those things. But I will say, if you do make any changes to this form, such as your address, definitely shoot me an email so that I can just make sure that everything went through on our end, so that everything goes to the correct address. And then once you fill out this basic information, it's going to have you adopt and sign. You're going to sign at the end, and then you should be all set for that form. And this next piece is for our time tracking. So this is once you actually start your term of service, where you're going to be logging your hours. For those of you who are in a field placement, you'll still be completing your weekly supervision forms and tracking your hours in Sonia, but you will also need to track your hours for AmeriCorps service in our timekeeping system called Encore. There's a little bit of extra work, but the website is pretty user-friendly. Once you all get set up and enrolled for AmeriCorps and your program, your position is linked and everything like that, I will be sending each of you an email with this link to the website that you can bookmark, as well as your username and a password. The password is going to be a default password that you will be prompted to change when you first log in. Again, I definitely recommend bookmarking this website because you'll need to go in pretty often and track your time. So it's az.encorereports.com. Again, I'm going to show you some screenshots in the following slides. But after you click on this link, you're going to see a drop-down menu on the right-hand side of the screen where you'll pick the correct program year. It's actually defaulted right now to 2021 to 2022, so you shouldn't have to change it, but in case anything happens, just make sure that says that correct year. And then when the next page is loaded, you're going to see a list of all the programs that are currently participating in Arizona using Encore. So you're going to want to scroll down to the survivor link icon, and you're going to choose AmeriCorps member to log in. And then it's going to take you to your specific login page where you'll be able to enter in your username and password. So when you first go to that az.encorereports.com, again, here's where you're going to see the program year. So you want to make sure that's correct there, and then click submit. And then what's really nice about our program is we have our logo included here. There's a lot of them just have AmeriCorps logos. So you're actually able to find it pretty quickly. And then you're going to click AmeriCorps member. There's three options. You want to make sure you hit AmeriCorps member. And then it'll bring you to the screen where you can sign in with your username and password. So again, you'll know that you're in the right one because it says you're logging into 2021 to 2022, increasing access to evidence-based care for survivors of domestic violence is our longer name. And you're going to put in your username and password and click login. And then when you get into your dashboard, there's going to be a blue toolbar at the top of the screen that gives you different menu options, and you're going to want to go to time tracking. And then it's going to give you a drop-down menu where you'll be able to click enter timesheets. You're then going to come to a page where you select the correct time period for the hours that you're entering. And it does go week by week, so you're going to want to make sure to choose the week that you need to fill out and hit choose. So here's what it looks like when you first log in. Again, you'll see some categories here on the top. You're going to want to go to time tracking, and then it'll give you that drop-down menu. And then when you go to enter timesheets, it's going to give you this screen here. And this is an old screenshot. We used to have it bi-weekly, but it's currently weekly. So when you go to this arrow, it'll give you all the timesheets that you're able to enter. I definitely encourage you all to keep up on this and make sure you're doing it weekly, because this is one way that we verify. This is the way we verify that you've completed your hours. And again, really important for making sure you're able to get paid as well. Before I get into the actual timesheet, a couple things I'd like to show you all here. This like dashboard home screen is really nice because it gives you kind of an overview of your hours. So you'll see on the left-hand side, it'll say your name, as well as the total number of hours you're enrolled in. What I really like is that it also shows you the number of hours you have left, as well as your expected end date. So for you all, it should be August 31st, 2022. It'll show you how many hours you have left. And then here on the right, it'll show you a general snapshot of how many hours you've completed, broken down into service and training. This one's important because you're only allowed to do 20% of your hours maximum as training hours. So good idea to keep an eye on this. Also something we keep an eye on, and we'll let you know if you're getting too close to the training hours, if you haven't entered in any training hours, because there is a minimum requirement. But again, just like a nice snapshot here of the hours that you've done so far. So when you click the correct time period that you're looking to enter hours in for, you'll click choose. And then it's going to show you what looks like basically an Excel spreadsheet where you're able to put in hours for each category and the date you did service hours. So the correct category for the kinds of activities you complete that week, which may include training, community events, general service, healthy relationships, or domestic violence intervention. And then again, a note about the training requirements. So you should be doing a minimum of 8 hours of training and a maximum of 20% of the hours is training. So to give you an idea of this, if you're in a 300-hour program, it's going to be maximum 60 hours. If you're doing 450 hours, it's going to be 90 hours. None of you are going to be doing 675 for the summer, but if you join us again and you end up doing a 675-hour position, the maximum would be 135 hours of training. So this is an example. This is a blank one of what a timesheet will look like. There's each day here on the left-hand side, and then the categories across the top for the service. So there's two main areas, as I showed you earlier. There's training and service. Training is broken down further if you attend any Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence training. That's our state coalition. We have a separate category for that, as well as any online training. General training could be things like community training in a different agency or training at your agency that is related to the service that you'll be doing with AmeriCorps. So you'll want to put the number of hours under each category. For service, I'll go over these kind of more specifically. A community event is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Direct client contact could be something like individual client sessions, whether it's doing a case management session or safety planning or any one-on-one interaction with the client, or even a group. If you're doing group, you can put direct client contact there. General service is going to be something more like, let's say you're at a domestic violence agency and you're helping with preparing rooms for new families coming in, or you're helping at the donation center, or you're helping with child, in the child development center, kind of more general service. And then we added a category this year for healthy relationships or domestic violence intervention. So if you are doing something like safety planning using the MyPlan safety planning app, or if you're doing healthy relationships education, which is part of your service with our particular program, you'll want to put in the hours under that category. And then there's also a brief or a box here for a brief description of the activities that you participated in that day. So it could be something like, I attended training with the coalition, met with 2 clients for intakes, something like that. A quick note for any of you who are participating in research over the summer for your AmeriCorps service. AmeriCorps is a little weird about counting research for service. So we just had to be a little bit creative with some of the language putting in here, things like conducting focus groups or, data collection, those kinds of things you can put in. I'm just kind of avoiding the word research specifically. If you have any questions though about, what language is okay to put in, just feel free to email me and I'm happy to give you some guidance there. And then it'll show you the total hours for the day on the right-hand side here. And then at the bottom, you have the ability to put in general comments if you want. You don't have to. It'll also give you total hours for the week. And it's going to have you certify that the documented time and activities are comprehensive and accurate before you submit your timesheet. So if you're the type of person that likes to put in hours every day you're doing service or every time you do service, whether if it's a few times a week, you can definitely go ahead and do that. And then you have the option to just hit save. So that saves the timesheet and you go back into it to complete it. Or if you like doing it week by week, you have the option to then just authorize it and submit as soon as you're done for the week. All right, so general member expectations. One of them is to be sure that you're checking your emails and following all onboarding processes. This is how we get you started and get going so that you can do your service hours and again, get paid for your, get the stipend. We, as you've probably seen by now, we send a lot of emails for the onboarding items, and we also send emails when things might be missing for your timesheets, or if we have questions about your timesheets or anything else. I know I asked in the Google form about your preferences for communication, so that will be taken into account for various things, but for the most part, we use email very heavily. So it's just super important to stay on top of those things. As I mentioned, filling out your timesheets weekly. And then another member requirement is participating in domestic violence, healthy relationships training. Many times, I would say oftentimes we have encourage our members to participate in our AmeriCorps Domestic Violence Foundation course, which for undergraduates is SW 416 and graduates is SWG 545. Unfortunately, it is not offered in the summer and also not available for online students, even though it's an online course. It's something to do with the format. But for those of you who maybe are on-ground students, you haven't taken the course, I highly recommend that you consider taking this course in the fall or spring. And also it's really great if you have any interest in pursuing the domestic violence certificate program. I'll go off for a second on that. I also really encourage any of you who are not graduating to consider that, especially being an AmeriCorps member. If you participate in the course and do 2 semesters of internship, you only have 2 other domestic violence electives that you're required to take to get that certificate. And our program director, Dr. Jill Messing, teaches in a really amazing risk assessment course in the fall that I also encourage all of you to participate in if you're not graduating, and even if you don't want to do the certificate program. But a nice way to kind of overlap with what you're doing with your AmeriCorps service. Again, because this course is not offered in the summer, if you haven't already taken it, we're trying to get all of our members this summer to participate in the equivalent of, which is the 40-hour domestic violence sharing experience training, which is facilitated by the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. Our course is also co-taught by the coalition, so it's really similar in terms of content, but the sharing experience training is much more concentrated. It's 40 hours, week long. It's an intense training, but it is amazing. I've been through it myself. And then I think we're looking at some alternate trainings for those of you who can't attend, that week, which is going to be June 6th to 10th for this summer. So work with me and Megan on that. Worst case scenario, last resort, we do have an alternate training called Domestic Violence Simmons Training. It's online, self-paced, and it does provide some general information about domestic violence, but is not as comprehensive as the course, as well as the 40-hour training. And the other benefits of doing either the course or the sharing experience training is that at the end of both of those, you're actually verified as a victim advocate in the state of Arizona. So really great experience and something you can put on your resume. But let us know, work with us if you have, or we'll work with you if you're not able to attend the 40-hour training this summer. I talked about the national duties of service, which again, for the summer doesn't necessarily apply, but hopefully we'll have some other opportunities. I know we're working on a healthy relationships education event on campus at the end of the summer. Other ways that the members will be able to get together this summer. And then I'm also going to go through prohibited activities. These are things that AmeriCorps as a whole has created a list of prohibited activities that while you're serving as an AmeriCorps member doing service hours, you're not allowed to participate in. There are some things that I'll mention about some of the areas that you can do as a citizen, just not doing AmeriCorps service. But the first 2 are hopefully kind of self-explanatory and things you're already not doing. The first 2 prohibited activities are members should not engage in any activity that is illegal under local, state, or federal law, or engage in any activities that pose a significant safety risk to others. Again, this list is pretty long and lengthy, but I'm going to read through it as well, or just in case you have any questions, since you're all aware of the prohibited activities. So you're also not able to participate in any prohibited activities that include any activity involving attempting to influence legislation, an election, or aid a partisan political organization, helping or hindering union activity, engaging in religious instructions, conducting worship services, providing instruction as part of a program that includes mandatory religious instruction or worship, maintaining facilities primarily or inherently devoted to religious instruction or worship, engaging in any form of religious proselytization, organizing or engaging in protests, petitions, boycotts, or strikes, impairing existing contracts for services or collective bargaining agreements, participating in or endorsing events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, political candidates, political platforms, proposed legislation, or elected officials, providing a direct benefit to a for-profit entity, a labor union, a partisan political organization, a religious organization, or a nonprofit that engages in lobbying, conducting a voter registration drive, or using the CNCS funds to conduct a voter registration drive, providing abortion services or referrals for receipt of such services, or such other activities as CNCS may prohibit. So a couple things I want to talk about for these areas. Again, these are all things that you can participate in as a citizen in your own time, as long as you're not counting them for AmeriCorps service hours. And we just ask that if you're doing something like participating in a voter registration drive, or going down to lobby about a bill, that you're not wearing AmeriCorps gear while you're doing these things. And one other important area that I want to talk about is the providing abortion services or referrals for receipt of such services, especially for those of us who are social work students. We're going to be at field placements, who may be working with individuals who request this information or needing this area of support. The way that we have been able to get around this is that we have our members, in these situations, try to do a warm handoff to another staff member at their agency who can then provide this information. Worst case scenario, like let's say you're doing, I should say worst case scenario, but let's say you're doing, services where really there's no other person who could provide this information to them. We have had members in the past who just don't count that specific interaction for AmeriCorps service. So if you have any questions about these, specific scenarios that might apply for your experience or your internship, let us know. Let me know. I'm happy to help talk through it. And I will also mention that these are all things that other staff members at the agency or other interns who are not doing AmeriCorps service can participate in, just you are not able to as an AmeriCorps member and counting AmeriCorps hours for service. And then a review of the to-do list for onboarding items. For those of you who like to check things off, I'm happy to send this as a screenshot or with a PowerPoint. So one of the things we talked about was that member profile on the AmeriCorps website, as well as creating the AmeriCorps application. You should have received a Docusign with all of our pre-boarding documentation, as well as attachments for your copy of your ID and fingerprint clearance card, and a selfie of you holding your ID, your ID. That should all come to you by Docusign. If you haven't received that, please let me know. And the reason we ask for the selfie is because after COVID started, we started doing more things online with onboarding versus in person. And so if we haven't had a chance to meet you in person, this is just the way to verify that you match your ID for our background check purposes. Supplier registration, registering for the domestic violence training, which again, connect with me and Megan about that. I believe all of you are already in placements. You don't have to worry about finding an internship, or you're with OGBV, applying to a specific survivor link position when we send you that email. And then you're going to actually have to accept the offer for the position in the AmeriCorps portal. And then once you're all enrolled and ready to go, you will be able to log in and start tracking your hours on Encore. I forgot to mention there's one additional form that I will be sending you all closer to when you'll get your first payment. And that is it's a long acronym. It's a business office form that will provide your stipend amount, the cash stipend amount, and it's split up again into 2 payments. So you'll do 2 separate forms around a little bit before when those payments first go out. And then last but not least, before we get to questions, this is our AmeriCorps Pledge. It's always a little awkward to do online. So I'm going to read it aloud and then just ask that you either read it along with me while you're muted, you want to unmute, or just read it to yourself in your head. I'm fine with any of those. So the AmeriCorps Pledge is, I will get things done for America to make our people safer, smarter, and healthier. I will bring Americans together to strengthen our communities. Faced with apathy, I will take action. Faced with conflict, I will seek common ground. Faced with adversity, I will persevere. I will carry this commitment with me this year and beyond. I am an AmeriCorps member and I will get things done. And that is it. I know that was a lot of information in a short period of time. Any questions that I can help answer?
Hi, yes, I have one question. Sorry, I'm driving, I'm picking up my kids, so if we get disconnected, but I'm trying to get my fingerprint card. If I don't have it yet, and they were saying it could take up to 5 weeks, which hopefully it doesn't, but how would that work?
You're breaking up just a little bit, but hopefully you can hear me. So we have found that recently the fingerprint clearance cards have actually been coming super quick. Did you already submit, like, did you already do your fingerprints?
No, because, and I'm trying to figure it out. I didn't realize it, but Wednesday, I guess, is the only day of the week that the city police department does it. So now I'm trying to find a third party place to do it through, but I've never done this before. So I'm just learning as I go. And I think I messed up by not making that appointment for today.
Yeah, no worries. Whereabouts in the Valley do you live, Jamie?
I'm in Tucson.
Oh, you're in Tucson. Okay. Because
Yeah.
there should be sites that you can go to that besides the police department that you can get your fingerprints. So let me see if I can get that list to you of those in your area. That way you aren't limited to that 1 day a week, because usually there's a lot other sites that have, you know, more hours.
Yeah, so like I actually went to Wickenburg to get mine when I did mine, but that's even farther. So
Okay.
I know that the UPS store downtown in Tucson, because I was in there today sending off some documents and someone was doing their fingerprint card. It's a UPS store downtown, but I think it should have similar. You should have similar access across most UPS stores. Check that out, and if you, I can message the address for the UPS store that's downtown if you need it.
I think I didn't even know that was an option. So I'll start looking there and I can just call a couple, you know, until I find one. So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallory. Super helpful to know. Appreciate that. Did you already do the application online, Jamie, with CPS?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've done everything in that first email except for sending the photo of that one section of the fingerprint card and sending the photo.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because once you, like I said, once you get, at least up here in Phoenix, I don't know if it's different down there, but a few people have gotten theirs here in Phoenix recently, and it was like after they put in got their prints done, it was less than a week or a week max.
Okay.
They got their card. But we will need that in order to get you started, because that's how part of our background check process. So just kind of keep me updated. Like I said, I'll also look to see what other options there might be in Tucson if the UPS doesn't work out.
All righty. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? One thing I realized I did forget to talk about, so with the domestic violence and healthy relationships education, that is something that we are looking to obviously have members incorporate into their, whether it's your internship, your field experience for the summer, or, you know, research, what you're working on, GBV. So it's going to look a little different depending on where your site is. But for those of you who don't have a learning contract, we're actually going to have you and your supervisor work on creating like just 1 or 2 goals that kind of align with the, you know, general AmeriCorps outcomes, as well as our program specifics. So we'll send that out to your supervisor to have them go over that with you. So just kind of as a heads up, not super lengthy. And then for those of you who already have a learning contract, you know, for those of you who are creating that second semester learning contract, that's where we can look at putting in your learning contract, something more specifically around, you know, implementing healthy relationships education. We have looked at creating like specific language around that. So just, you know, let me know if you need some help with where to put that into your learning contract for the summer.
Hi, so do we need to wait until we get the email for to apply for the survivor link position?
Yes, correct. So this orientation was part of the onboarding process. And I think, Tabitha, I think you had all of your other things done. So we will be able to start moving forward with the other step, which is, you know, doing your background check and getting you linked in the AmeriCorps portal. Did I miss anything on that, Megan?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Tabitha. And then we'll email you as soon as your background check's done.
So if I just looked through my application on AmeriCorps. It was created a year ago, and I just made sure it's updated. How do I need to do something that triggers that action to you, or what would that?
So I think because you already had one existing and you already have references in, I think all you have to do is edit it and like, you know, confirm that you edited it and updated it. I don't think you have to do references again, to my knowledge. and because we had returning members last year who just edited their previous year. So it would again be for you that next step of, when it comes time to link your position. So I can't remember if I thought you were working on your fingerprint card as well, right, Mallory?
Correct. Yeah, that's the only thing that's been kind of the stop.
Okay. Yes, then I think you should be good to go on the application piece of it. We'll just, when it comes time to link that after you have your fingerprint card in, we'll email you about that. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Or Megan, anything that I missed that you think would be good for me to talk about?
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, as many as you need.
I guess my question was, do we start like hours this week? Like, cause I'm already like at my internship, but then I guess I answered my own question in my head. If like, we would start counting hours once we get like the login information for the timesheet and everything, that's when it would start.
Correct. Yep. So we actually have to have you link to the position, accept the position in the AmeriCorps portal, and then we'll send you what's called a member service agreement, which is another thing I didn't list on that onboarding email that I should add, or on to-do list. It's another Docusign that you'll have an opportunity to review your service description, kind of the things around that. And then you'll be able to be set up in Encore. We use the NSOPW for the sex offender background check part of our piece of our background check, and the site has been down like all day. So as soon as I have that back up, I can start working on some of you who've done all the onboarding steps so far, and we'll be able to move you on to that next step. And then, as soon as we get you enrolled with our specific position, or your specific position, and then Encore set up, you can start your hours. Hopefully that helps.
And I just went and double checked, Mallory, and I do see your application. So I'll be able to send you a link to our specific position in the next couple of days.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks, Megan. And mostly NSOPW is back up. So as soon as we end, I'm gonna get some of those going. If you have any other questions, if you think of any other questions, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me and Megan, as well as if something you think of after our orientation today, or if anything specific, specific to your situation that you don't really not like to share in front of the group, please feel free to reach out. We'll be in touch as we move forward with onboarding, getting you all going. Again, I'm so excited to have you all joining us this summer. Any remaining questions before we sign off for today?